Hello everybody, welcome back to Teach Me to Science, and today we're going to be talking about thermodynamics. This video is just a broad overview of thermodynamics, and I'll be making individual videos about specific topics related to thermodynamics later. Let's start by talking about the definition of thermodynamics. When a word seems long or complicated, I really like to break it down into its component parts, so in this case that would be thermo and dynamics. Thermo is relating to heat or temperature. You could get that idea from the idea of a thermometer. When I think about the word dynamic, I think about something complicated, something that has a lot of moving parts. So that's why I wrote movement here. Putting these two ideas together, you probably will get something along the lines of the movement of heat in a complicated way. This turns out to be pretty much spot on. Thermodynamics is the study of the movement of energy in the form of heat. This often causes a temperature change, and following this movement of energy can sometimes be a little bit complicated. If this definition seems a little bit hard to understand, it'll probably make a little bit more sense when we talk about energy exchange in the form of heat. Before we start talking about energy exchange, we should probably define what energy is. These terms here are probably the terms you'll see the most in this unit: work, energy, and heat. We're going to start with energy and then talk about heat and work. So even though it's a little bit roundabout, the definition of energy is the ability to do work. Even though we haven't defined work, you can probably get an idea that work is the ability to move something, make something happen, and energy is having the physical or chemical capability of doing that. One easy way to think about energy might be in the form of food or ATP that our body uses for us to be able to move during the day. Heat is a type of energy, and it's the hot or cold feeling that results from a change in temperature. Something important to note here: cold is not actually an entity itself. Cold is an absence of heat or an absence of thermal energy. Work is a little bit trickier to describe, but basically it's the force required to move an object over a distance. The key idea here is that there's some change in distance. For example, if I push on my couch and my couch moves absolutely nowhere, then I've done no work. But if I push on my couch and I'm able to push it across the room, then I've done work to get it there. So I mentioned that energy comes in the form of heat or thermal energy, but there are also many other kinds of energy. Pause the video here and try and figure out a couple more types of energy. Okay, so my little running man here is depicting kinetic energy, which is dependent on movement. Next, I've got a ball falling off a cliff, which is depicting potential energy because it's raised to a height above the ground. There's also light or solar energy. And most important to this class is chemical energy, which I've described as this little beaker here. There are also forms of energy that are slightly more dangerous to people, such as nuclear energy. An important distinction is that these broader areas of energy, such as chemical energy, likely have some sort of kinetic or potential energy included in them. For example, chemical energy has the movement of molecules within it, which would be kinetic energy, and it also has potential energy stored within the chemical bonds. Now, last but not least, let's talk about the system versus the surroundings. The system is your object of interest, and the surroundings is everything around that, within reason. It would be silly to include Hawaii or some faraway land in my surroundings when it's not impacting my chemical reaction. So here I've got a picture of a hot coffee and what I think is my freezer. Pause the video and try and guess what might be your system and what might be your surroundings. So I've designated my system as my hot coffee, which means when I put it in the cold freezer, energy in the form of heat is going to flow from my coffee into the freezer. Alright, I hope you all have enjoyed this brief introduction to thermodynamics. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, I will see you next time. Bye!